Hi, it's Natasha with Cricut, and I have a little confession to make. I have a lot of friends who have babies, and instead of coming up with different ideas for different gifts every time, I've standardized my gifting process, and I've created these mommy and mini cute matching outfits, because what mom doesn't like to match their baby? So I'm gonna walk you through how to make it, so let's go. I've already made the mommy t-shirt, so I'm going to show you how to make the baby bodysuit because it's the same process. So let me show you what you need to do that. First, we'll need our connected device with design space, my easy press, my cutting machine, my Cricut infusible ink, cardstock and butcher paper. You'll also need some tools and accessories, which we'll go through during the process. Of course, you'll need a baby bodysuit. I got mine at Cricut.com. And then a pressing mat. So let's go ahead and get started in Design Space. Because I've already made the mommy t-shirt, I'm going to hide this part just so we can make some room on this canvas here. And then do you see how there are 4 different colors for this mini? If I really wanted to get fancy, then I could cut these out in 4 different colors, but I'm in a little hurry. So if you're pressed for time, here's a little hack. You can make them all one color by attaching them. Now this will cut in all one color. This is already the size that I need it to be, so I am going to make it. On the mat preview screen, there's a button here called Mirror. This is important when working with infusible ink, which I'll show you a little bit later. When I click on the button, the text is now backwards, and then we'll hit Continue. Now Design Space is looking to connect to my Cricut cutting machine via Bluetooth. I'll select which material I'm using, and today I'm using infusible ink transfer sheet. Now I can put my infusible ink on my mat. So I'm going to make some room here. I'm using a standard grip mat and taking off this clear part, which helps preserve the stickiness of the mat. We need it to be sticky so that my material will stick to the mat when it's cutting through my machine. So I'm going to take my infusible ink and just line it up in the very corner of my mat. Then I'll smooth it. And when you're using this, it's ink on paper, so you want to make sure that your hands are nice and clean, they're not wet, or they don't have any oils on it. And then I can insert it into my machine. I'll press this insert button because it's blinking. And now my cutting machine is going to measure and make sure that I have enough material for what I've told it to cut. Now that this is blinking, I can press the go button. While this is cutting, I'm going to turn on my easy press here. And I used the Cricut Heat app to let me know what temperature and time that I should have for this specific project. So I'm going to set this to 385 degrees for 40 seconds. Now that this button is blinking, I can go ahead and unload my mat. And to help me get this infusible ink off of the sticky mat, I'm going to turn it this way and pull the mat away from the material so that it doesn't curl as much. Okay. Remember that clear protective sheet we put aside? I'm going to put it back on the mat because I'm done using it for now. And now I can use this trimming tool to help me cut down the material that I'm not using. Do you see how much extra material is left? This hasn't been cut on, so I can use this extra part for future projects. I'm going to cut down this little part over here too. And more material I can use for the future. And now I've cut down to really close to where my design is. So now it's time to weed or get rid of the parts of this infusible ink sheet that I don't want transferred onto my baby bodysuit. So to weed, I'm going to just roll the edges of this to separate the liner from the infusible ink material. And now I just weed away the parts that I don't want. And you might notice that this color looks a little dull compared to what's on the packaging here. That's because infusible ink is a special ink that is activated with heat. So it doesn't become vibrant until it's activated with heat. So don't worry if it looks a little dull to you. And now my Easy Press is ready. So as soon as I'm done weeding this, we are so close to pressing. I just have a few more pieces I need to weed out here. Okay, and my design is all ready. You can see that it's backwards because we mirrored it in Design Space. That's because it works kind of like a stamp where the ink sits on top of the paper, and when I flip it over, this clear backer acts as a protecting sheet when I use the heat press. So it will end up reading the right way. So before I press onto the baby bodysuit, we need to prep the baby bodysuit so that this lasts a really long time. So to do that, I'm going to use a lint roller and lint roll this baby bodysuit to make sure that there aren't any particles, any lint or dust that will obscure my design. Then I'm going to use my Easy Press and I'll do a pre-press for 5 seconds. Okay. Now that that's pre-pressed, I'm also going to put some cardstock inside of the baby bodysuit because the infusible ink is activated with heat and it's really potent, so sometimes it can seep through to the other side, and I just want it on the front side of the bodysuit. Okay, it's pre-pressed, lint rolled, we have our cardstock inside. Now we can place our design where we want it. So I'm going to line this up in the center. And even though the backer where I weeded from, this clear part right here, is sticky, which helps me place my design, I want to make sure that I put some heat resistant tape down so that when I lift the press off, it doesn't lift off with it. Because when it does, that's called ghosting, and I don't want any other parts besides this design to show up on the bodysuit. And so when you lift this and it's still kind of warm, it can leave some ink if there's still ink left on the infusible ink sheet. So I'm going to take some heat resistant tape here, some scissors, and I'll just cut 2 pieces here. One for the top and one for the bottom. Now that that's all placed where I want it, I'm going to put some butcher paper on top to make sure that the ink doesn't get on my Easy Press. And now it's time to press. Because the infusible ink is activated with heat, I don't want to move the Easy Press around because that would smudge the ink. So I'm just putting some pressure in the same place. Okay. Now I can remove the butcher paper. Do you see how when I lifted the Easy Press, the butcher paper came up a little bit? It's good that we use some heat resistant tape here so that the ink didn't smudge when I lifted the Easy Press. The reason why we need to pre-press is to smooth out the material and make sure we take out any moisture. The great thing about infusible ink is it lasts a lifetime, so if we prep it the right way, this project is bound to last forever. Now that this has cooled a little bit, I'm going to slowly peel up this tape and the liner. And this is my favorite part, the big reveal And you can see that all the ink is taken off of the infusible ink sheets from here and transferred onto this baby bodysuit. Look how cute this is. I know all of my friends' babies are going to love it. So the next time you need to think of a project or a little gift to give someone, check out our videos. We have lots of ideas.